So let's get the first order of business going. So I like to bring up a recent poll, which we conducted last week on social media at MarineTraffic, where we asked participants a question. And I'm going to bring up my screen right now. And the question that we posed was, what do you think the impact of this new trade policy will be on the shipping industry? And these were the results from our poll. So for the panel, Lori, I'll start with you. Based on these results here, looks like higher costs was the biggest opinion made by individuals out there. And so, are you surprised about these results? Do you think this is something that was expected?
I think it would be expected. I mean, last week we at CNBC, my colleague Kayla Tausche interviewed Secretary Buttigieg. And one of the first things out of his mouth was looking at putting on a mileage tax. That would actually penalize folks that have to commute to work. When it comes to government and when it comes to quote improvements, things of that, it's just an automatic knee-jerk reaction to talk about pay fors. How are you going to pay for this? I was on a panel last week and I spoke with a lobbyist who is helping push through the bill, and he was in favor of a gas tax. Mm-hmm. So I think that the audience here is dead on in terms of, well, what is it going to cost me in terms of any type of improvement?
That's very interesting, actually, indeed, because of course, I guess the bottom line, consumers don't want to foot the bill for anything that's going to impact them down the road. So that's interesting perspective. John, what do you think about the results of our poll? John, do I have you? I think it's little technical difficulties there, but we'll circle back with you, John. Mario, what about you? What's your opinion? What's your perspective on this?
Well, I think the poll is reflective of, again, what we've been experiencing here in the port maritime industry. It's interesting that only 13% believe it would result in infrastructure improvements, which gives you an idea that of the frustration and the pessimism that we have with regard to this ongoing question about infrastructure. So hopefully things will change, but that's very telling to me that people are just frustrated and not optimistic about infrastructure improvements.
Thank you. Yeah, we have yet to see. I believe tomorrow we'll definitely get more wind on the Build Better America agenda being released. So we'll see what happens there. Mr. Doyle, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I'm the quintessential optimist. So what I do is I take a look at that poll there, and I combine both supply chain management and infrastructure, and we get 41%. Mm-hmm. So at 41%, I mean, you can't have supply chain management without infrastructure improvements. And I think that moving forward with this administration, we've seen this before in previous administrations, the Trump administration, the Obama administration, the Bush administration before that. Everybody talked about infrastructure improvements, but they never really pushed it forward. It seems to be an absolute priority with the Biden administration that we will get infrastructure. Whether that means filibuster reform, I'm all in favor of it, because our infrastructure is crumbling and we are falling behind. And when you talk about the maritime industry, the entire infrastructure and supply chain management rests on your ports, your rail, your inland infrastructure, rivers and waterways. So, I'm optimistic. I think that combining those two, we're going to get something with this administration, and I'm looking forward to it.
Right. No, I'm definitely going to talk about infrastructure. So I want to get more in depth about that when we get to that topic. John, I don't know if we have you back here.
Yeah, thank you. I wholeheartedly agree with Mario and William. 20, 30 years ago, I can remember APL, American President Lines, was on the forefront, for example, of infrastructure, and whether it was the double stack train, whether it was larger TEU vessels at the time, the industry as a whole from the United States of America with maritime related we were at the top. And I see it time and time again. We're reacting all the time. These vessels that are now 18,000, 22,000 TEU size, you either can't bring them to most of the ports in the United States. You don't have, let's say, the proper infrastructure with the cold iron and obeying the rules and regulations with CARB. You know, a lot of the environmental laws and enforcement that we have. The maritime industry is constantly, from our standpoint, is reacting. We need new infrastructure. We need, you know, these terminals and these ports to be allowed to handle these larger vessels. We need to be, you know, on the forefront and not reacting constantly again and again. I hate to keep going back like Mario and Mr. Doyle did to infrastructure improvement, but it's going to be very exciting. Hopefully that we can have some of this here coming in the next, you know, 2, 3, 4 years.
No, absolutely. I definitely agree. It is a very aging infrastructure that we have. So, you know, high hopes that we can actually make something happen. So thank you everyone for your opinions there. So,
Bill?
yes.
I'm sorry to interject. The biggest thing that we're not discussing though is while you've got this $6 trillion price tag, and that we all agree that we need infrastructure, the money is going to be allocated to the states. And then it's the states that will dictate where the money goes. So even though that the money is going to be dedicated to whatever for infrastructure, that money may not go to the ports. It may go to roads or bridges. So in the end, that is something that from a local level, that the ports of Long Beach, LA, Florida, Miami, they have to speak with the governor, because it's going to be the states that are dictating how that money is spent overall. And that's one of the biggest hurdles.
Right.
Look, Lorianne, you know, what you bring up is a valid point. But I do remember the days, you know, we can talk about filibuster reform, but we can also talk about earmarks. And earmarks existed before the days of money getting sent to the governors. And then the governors distributed from there, or sent to a federal agency, and then that federal agency is responsible for where the funds get sent. So there is talk in Washington, D.C. Right now about bringing back earmarks. And earmarks would be for, you know, special projects that you know, infrastructure and whatnot. And like the filibuster reform discussion, I'm totally in favor of earmarks as well. You know, we're not talking bridges to nowhere. We're talking bridges to somewhere. And that's ports and the infrastructure and the rail.